NLP is a process of induction, isn't it? It's a process of induction. You induce the change in your clients through the use of your energy, through the use of your words, your language. Let's have a little look at what induction actually is. So you may remember this from back at school, from your physics lessons, or you may not. Anyway, here we have two copper coils, and there's an AC current going into the lower of the coils here. Blue box signifying the current. So there's an electrical current going in, and a high voltage electrical current is induced in the second coil. That is, no physical contact is being made, but the current is being induced in the second coil. Induction takes place any time that a second inductor or copper coil crosses across the lines of flux or the magnetic field of the primary inductor, the lower coil in this case. So what we're saying in NLP terms is that we can induce profound change in someone else by using our language and our energy. So through a cooperative flow of energy and ideas. Now, there are two ways of thinking, aren't there? There's inductive thinking and there's deductive thinking. Deductive thinking is starting with a wider perspective, a more abstract idea, and breaking that down into little pieces. So an example of deductive thinking would be, I'm no good at sport, and therefore I won't be able to play golf. Sport being the wider perspective, and then a subset, if you like, of sport would be golf. So if I can't do any sport, then I won't be able to play golf. Inductive thinking is the other way around. In inductive thinking, you'd start with the detail, the subset, and you'd chunk up to more abstract. If I can learn one thing, then I can learn everything. So if we think of sets and subsets again, starting with the subset and moving to a set, moving more abstract. And it's this inductive thinking and inductive language that will allow us to make the changes in NLP. So let's have a look at this then. In terms of our potential, in terms of our thinking, and in terms of our nervous system, we have no boundaries. There's no boundaries to what we can achieve. In its purest form, there are no boundaries. And as we go through life and we create problems, so the problems put the boundaries around our potential and around our nervous system. How do we actually do that? Well, when we encounter problems, we language our problems. We interpret the actual problem and we put it into our language. Since I can't play sports, I won't be able to play golf. So there's a boundary around that particular problem. The thought is, and the language is, I won't be able to play golf. That's the problem. And that's the boundary. So there are various boundaries in our nervous system that are created by these problems as they occur. And these boundaries limit us in our potential, of course. Okay, now, as we remember, our reality is based on the order and sequence of our internal representations. So, if we're going to create change, then all we need to do is change the order and the sequence of somebody's internal representations. And when we're bringing about change linguistically with somebody, then do we need them to be associated or dissociated to the problem, do you think? Yeah, we need them to be associated with their problem. The client needs to be in the problem. The client needs to be running the problem and associated to it. If they're not, then the neural networks aren't activated at that particular point. So if the problem's over here and the clients in their mind are over here, and you try and solve the problem, then you might solve something. You might make the client feel better. And the client might say, yeah, well, something's changed. I feel better. But I think the problem's still there. So you need to be associated in the problem in order to solve the problem. And it's worth recognising that naturally, if the client's got a serious problem, then the chances are that they'll be naturally dissociated from that particular problem. Because naturally you wouldn't want to sit in a problem situation constantly and have it constantly running through your mind and have all those neural networks associated with the problem lit up continuously. So the first thing you need to do is you need to associate the client with their particular problem. And then what you're going to do, quantum physics terminology, is you're going to light up the neural networks associated with that problem. So how do you actually light up those neural networks? Well, by associating the client to the problem, you'll ask them to describe in their language what the problem actually is, what they're seeing, what they're feeling, what they're hearing. And in order to light up those neural networks associated with the problem, you'll repeat those words back to them. You'll use their language back to them. And that will light up those neural networks. And what will happen? Well, as we light up those neural networks, we'll use a language pattern that will take the client from inside the problem in their thinking to outside the problem. And what it does is that will blow the boundaries. It'll blow the boundaries of the problem. And in order to do that, what sort of language pattern do you think that we'd need? Well, yeah, we'd need an inductive language pattern to do that. So we light up the neural networks and it blows the boundaries to take the client's thinking outside of the problem. It's an induction process. And you might be making the connection now to the copper coil that we talked about earlier. It's an induction process. And what language patterns do we know in NLP that are inductive language patterns? Well, yeah, that's right. It's the Milton model. So we're going to use the Milton model to chunk the client up in their thinking, and that's inductive.